Henlo and Ooga Booga, dear listener. This is another VHS by Let's Go Jani. Something I prepared earlier. I want to take a moment to shout out to all of our East-based bears who are wider in the eco. We see you. Part of this, you may not be aware, but actually a lot of the stuff that we produce gets translated across the Mandarin. So the official Twitter for this is 0x_honeyjar_cn. And there's also a Twitter group, which you may not be aware of, t.me/the honeyjar_cn, all one word. A massive shout out to East Bearers in the THJ crew, and that is Lily, who's at the coalface doing most of the translation work, Tian, head of data and the validators over at THJ, and Umeshu, head of BD. Now, you may not be aware, but baked into THJ, if you break it down into its composites, is, and forgive me, Niman de Yingyu Biwater Hanyu Hao, is Tui Hao Jin Ting Hao Ji. Have a look there. But yeah, if you want to get into the golden age status of THJ, get involved. And really, yeah, this is a big shout out to Lily. They're at the coalface doing all of the translation work. A lot of it's with translating across the mimetic warfare room that is the apiculture jar, headed by the absolute Chads, Jacob, best balanced scout in the game, and Gods, one of the most organized, chaotic memesters in the game. Shout out to you. But when the rest of the world was starting to kneel at the feet of our emergent AI overlords, THJ decided to double down onto the human aspect. And we hired a war room of between 10 and 20 artists, because it's our belief that, you know, the gen umami still requires that human touch. And so there I'll leave it. Nothing you hear in this podcast should be listened to. It's all performance autism. Jani is a self-described mental chill bear. If you are going to take advice from Jani, you should consider seeking psychiatric and spiritual assistance and help and guidance, or at very least, check yourself. I don't know how I found myself here. If you know where I am, please send help. Henlo, and furthermore, Ooga Booga.
Part three.
What do you think from your experience in previous industries in different ecosystems throughout the 2010s? What do you see as their biggest hurdles? And what do you see as the biggest hurdle for Berachain, I guess, getting to mainnet or post?
What was the first one? Whose hurdles? The second is Berachain.
Yeah, sorry. In your experiences in previous, I guess, ecosystems, or whether that be crypto or other industries, what were some of their hurdles, some of their biggest hurdles getting to that finish line? And then what do you think are some of the Berachain's biggest hurdles?
There was a lot of pain in early Ethereum. Like, people were fucked off it was taking so long. It's really, really hard to forecast how long this shit takes. But in the days of the early Ethereum stuff, there was no other real game in town. Like, there was Bitcoin, and there was a limited set of things you could do with Bitcoin. And so there was kind of a captured audience in a particular type of a sense, like those who were open to exploring stuff that wasn't Bitcoin, who were engaged. Times have changed, of course, so now there's like fragmentation of attention, fragmentation of different opportunities, and so it's a different terrain on that front. But as with any immensely complex systems, especially distributed systems, where like only so much modeling you can do before seeing stuff in the wild, which is why testnets are important in this type of thing. But again, we're in different times. I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse in a particular type of a sense, but yeah, like expectations are higher now compared to back then. It's probably standards that are set for self. I think the biggest thing with Berachain that's still like an open question is once it's live and once it's running, like, how does it respond to different market conditions? How does Berachain operate in a bear market? It's going to slap in the bulls. But yeah, I don't know. The thing that, from my experience, is if you've got a competent team who have a good work culture, good team culture, and you keep moving, you will figure shit out. And I think there's a stronghold of people who are just in really deep, who, you know, there's quite a lot of folks who are really deep in this. The opportunity cost is like having ignored stuff that's been happening because you can't split your attention across too many things. So I guess there is a non-negligible risk for each set of folks as to what their window of tolerance that opportunity cost is. Different people are different. They've got different stacks behind them, different constraints, different considerations. Again, that's like something that you can't necessarily model for, given, again, it's a distributed set of people kind of working in a don't trust, verify kind of an open source sense. I'd say kind of that's both a risk and an opportunity. That being said, there seem to be a high number of folks in and around, if not directly in the ecosystem, in the peripheries, who are very motivated by experiments, even maybe more so than making the bag. Many of them may have already made their bags. Yeah, I won't speak to stuff like regulatory stuff because it's not really my bag. It's in the camp of just see how stuff unfolds as it unfolds. I think that's enough from me for that.
And that's all I have to say about that.
Gotcha. No, that was a good summary.
Okay, so for about the next 40 minutes, Janny spirals into a soliloquy about the honey jar. And that's pretty much the episode, until Pemby cracks and leaves. Check it out if you want. Tez cleaned up the audio, but didn't add any extra fluff. Maybe listen at 1.5 speed. I don't know.
So here was the snapshot of stuff you could expect from THJ by the end of H1, which is coming up in 40 days. I think we've already done everything, but we just haven't released it because we're waiting for Verachain. But testnet collection, we launched a testnet collection. It's been minted, nearly approaching, it's definitely more than 2 million. It's approaching 2.5 million, the Ooga Boogie Picket. And a bunch of other stuff. The Faucet, we've kind of been working under the same V1 constraints as other folks. It's kind of been off for a bit. I'd say like 100,000 plus unique users. We kind of ran analysis on a bunch, and a surprising number of them have a lot of transactions on ETH mainnet, way more than you might expect, proportionally speaking. Then when you lower the threshold to say 50 transactions versus 100, it bounces again. If you drop that threshold down to 10, mainnet collections. So we've got Ooga Booga Bears coming, we've got Beras coming, we've got an NFT rebasing collection coming attached to Henlo, which is more or less ready to roll. Validators, we've got them running. There's again been stuff relating to V1 and stuff, but that's the point of kind of super early releases. You kind of have to expect that stuff, there's like teething issues. Website redesigns. I don't know if you noticed the Apiology site redesign, but we're basically going to be launching complete revamps of pretty much every THJ asset in the ecosystem. So we started with Bearer Infinity. Apiology has been released. The next on the stack is the THJ site. We're kind of going to be splitting it. It's going to be a dual site where it's a bit more of like a Web2 wrapper on the Web3 app, and there's going to be kind of a bifurcation. So you'll be able to, if you're a partner, you can click it and the partner gets their complete own website, or you can click community. And if it's community, then it kind of is specifically focused more on the community side. Attached to that, we're also going to be building out the kind of honeycomb dashboard, which kind of helps you to track all of the airdrops, whitelists, discounts, perks, this type of thing all in one place. Attached to that, there'll also be a bear drop site. We haven't really spoken about it, but one of the ways in which we were a bit visionary was around this notion, that kind of perks aggregator meta. So we've seen that a bit early. The Pudgy Penguin folks got some drops and got super excited about it. And I think now we've seen that projects, in their attempts to solve the problem that we said people would have, because everyone does have the same problem of who do we drop these tokens to distribute ownership to, have started experimenting with dropping to different communities. So without saying something that will get me in trouble with a regulator, as an entity, we've been operating on this logic of identifying people who are engaging in the ecosystem, and the wider universe that we've created, we kind of track on-chain and off-chain. And so the tools that we build, you can basically assume that universe will kind of come into the fold with all of the different stuff that we're building. As part of Henlo, you'll see a lot of different stuff we've done over the last 4 months kind of all get brought into one cohesive type of user experience where everything will kind of make sense. All of the different tendrils of the Kraken will kind of be expressed in a cohesive way through Henlo. Think, for example, you may have seen recently the unicorn memes kind of competition dashboard for that Cosmos meme token. So one of the interesting things that you can do with stuff like dashboards and stuff is if you were, for example, theoretically speaking, to have an airdrop, and if theoretically speaking, you had an ecosystem where there was a whole bunch of stuff you could do, hold, mint, quest, this type of thing, you could set up dynamic airdrops which respond to the extent to which different communities actually engage with the stuff that they can do relating to ecosystems. Doing this in this type of a way is actually a lot more generative and sustainable than kind of, say, dropping to entire user bases of different NFT communities, because the ROI on that isn't necessarily great. However, if you're able to identify and connect with like a smaller subset of some of those communities, you might be able to identify kind of the early degen types in different ecosystems. And if you were to think that way and have infrastructure to provide people with things to do and encourage them and incentivize them to do stuff using pre-existing stuff like, I don't know, badges on faucets and this type of thing, you'd be well set up to run some really sick airdrop campaigns. We've got Apiology DAO. So Apiology, one of the things that we did since we last spoke, honestly, so I haven't spoken about Majanis, but hand on heart, not that you should trust me, I've freely admitted that I'm a mentally ill person LARPing as a bear on the internet. But hand on heart, not a single one of those Jani alts was me. That kind of, for those who weren't around at the time, I remember Smokey messaging me being like, yo, how did you pull off this kind of absolute insanity on the timeline? And I said, Smokey, I literally have no fucking idea what's happening. Like, there was loads of different Jani accounts were opening up and shooting the shit with each other. And who we now know is Berapoke, kind of in a mad genius type of way, managed to capture the wave of some of that energy and form a Jani DAO who set up to essentially sweep jars and honeycombs with the playing the game of will increase our chances of winning what's in the jar 1 treasury, which is worth millions of dollars by this point. So one of the things that we did, I haven't crunched the numbers on this, but I think it's one of the largest acquisitions in Web3 to date. Like THJ acquired Majani DAO, which I don't know how many millions of dollars that deal is worth. So people who kind of were observant at that time managed to snag themselves a seat in the DAO. So what is Apiology? Apiology, let me start with a story and then we'll loop back around. During the bear market, I would often get DMs from Smokey introducing me to builders who'd been building during the bear, a product which might be of interest to the bears. Those products would need liquidity and or bears or both. And so Smokey would put me in touch with them because he knew I'd probably say yes and fuck around. In those platforms, we would end up kind of dominating them. So we're thinking, for example, Party Options, Caviar, Llamaland, this type of thing. By dominate, I mean like just hands down. The nearest to us are the Milady crew, which is Midera. I think that intersection is pretty interesting. That another crew who has a set of holders who has demonstrated kind of a savviness with degenning into things, NFT-fi, this type of thing. But so the observation was that when you have whales projects need kind of this trifecta of stuff. They need kind of liquidity of attention, liquidity in terms of capital flows and assets, and utilization. Typically speaking, that's kind of the things that are needed. Apiology kind of emerged from that intersection and observation of Jani as a whale in this ecosystem, and the patterns of builders building a product needing LPs and attention and users, and asking the question, what would it look like to make a product of a whale? That product is Apiology DAO. Rather than a singular large LP, we've created an entity that many bees can join to encompass it, form a whale. And the service that Apiology can provide to partner protocols is essentially to LP into their product, as well as driving attention and utilization all in one. Once you have that type of flow involved, you can also, for example, we didn't see this exactly at first, but again, this is kind of what happens when you keep moving in a particular space. You see opportunities. When you create value, you generate alpha. When you are observant of those creating, you can start fine-tuning your eye to capture and notice alpha. It's then a question of whether you can act on it or not. If you're a builder, your way of capturing the value from alpha generated from creation and innovation is then to build something that can then be utilized and capture value flows. But in that process of creation, you create more alpha. So one of the products that we're going to be releasing, I'm sure someone will kick me for saying this out loud, but again, I don't care, because part of the moat that we've built is that the reputation that we have in the space for saying we're going to do something and then doing it and executing on it well. We've now got years of track record in this stuff. So one of the constraints of Berachain is the fact that it's protocol-owned liquidity. So many long-tail assets in other ecosystems, one of the ways that they establish trust is to lock or burn their LP. So think meme coins, this type of thing. The reason they do that is to try to stimulate trust in them as a project so that they won't rug the liquidity and kind of death spiral it a la Luna. Not that that's what happened to Luna. So the product, we haven't got a working title for it. We keep referring to it as Verify, don't trust Verify. So in this long tail of asset of projects, long tail of assets like meme coins, this type of thing, we're building kind of a vault type contract that will allow these projects to collaborate with Apiology to essentially custody a portion of their LP for some amount of time, and whitelist deployment of emissions and this type of thing from Pol, if they manage to get whitelisted, into whitelisted partner protocols like, for example, maybe Veradrome, maybe somewhere else. The reason that there's a bit of a reputational moat there is anyone could fork that product, but then you'd have to trust that entity and those operators to do stuff in the way that they need to. It's unclear yet whether you could build that in a kind of purely smart contract, zero governance mechanism way, because it might be the fact that stuff needs to shift and change over time as the emergent experiment unfolds, that is Berachain. So again, these types of things with Apiology DAO is you can think of it as you've got a whale type entity who makes deals with partner protocols. At the moment, we've got deals with Lord Longnamed Yeet. We've got deals with Vase, so Vida Boogabez, Beraboro, Beradrome, Goldilocks, Raymond Finance, Yeet, Plug. And in some shape or form, some percentage of our seats and their tokens are kind of cross-swapped, and then we figure out flywheels for how to deploy that in ways that are beneficial in a win-win-win type of way. The seats themselves will be backed by the liquid backing tech, so folks will be able to kind of operate their seats in that type of a mechanism. as the value flows that are flowing through the system kind of increase. There'll be dashboards and this type of thing that kind of visualizes stuff, so it's super easy. Next is Beras. We've kind of gone through that. Beras, I would be surprised if we don't end up in the mainstream news for Beras. You'll see why when we launch it. Attached to that, so in the past we've spoken about building out Launchpad tech. To be honest, I would not really want to go toe-to-toe with Ethan. Ethan's an absolute monster in terms of grind and hustle and the absolute fucking passion that is pouring into this thing. So the stuff that we've been building has been very particularly adapted and focused, and is the tooling that's fueling the Mabera economy. And that's essentially kind of adaptation and extension of Scatter's. So Scatter is the platform of choice for Milady derivatives, and they've released a white label product called Splinter, I think. And yeah, ours is an adaptation of that. I should say with Apiology now, it's more or less we're in the audit phase with that stuff. We've got an adaptation of these absolute chads who've built StationX. I've got a lot of good things to say about them. They're worth checking out if you are running anything like some type of fund or open source project or anything with an on-chain treasury. I've been in and around some massive projects and the treasury management of them, and it's been fucking pain both for the operators and community. And I think the tooling that StationX has made is like a significant advance in many different ways. We've created a base fork of their system and adapted it to our specific needs for Apiology with collaboration from them. We're sharing the cost of the audits, or we're paying for the audits. I forget exactly. Any kind of improvements to the code base that we make will kind of help fork over to them, and then I think they will be upstream of us. So all of the efforts that they make in terms of the kind of care for the main product itself will benefit from. By the way, I'm just reading through the pinned post on the Honeyjar Twitter page, which says, here's a snapshot of what you can expect over 2024 if you want to follow along. Launch collabs with Beradodge. We did some collabs with them, and we launched the Solana collection. The Madman was like really went to town on the Solana collections. All I can say is that from a Honeyjar perspective, Henlo, is that the strategy has been to create wormholes on in as many different communities, tier one projects and ecosystems as we can, with Berachain as the destination chain. As part of the dynamic type of way of signaling that you are an engaged person on chain, whether you're a Pudgy Penguin holder or whether you're a Solana degen who maybe holds angry idiot. By participating in these kind of dynamic systems, it would be very Henlo and a useful thing for projects who actually want to identify who are the people who may be good candidates for rotations. What better way to rotate from one place to another than to engage people where they're familiar, where they already exist? It's our thesis that if, for example, you were to have someone who were to receive an airdrop, but they're native to, say, Base or to Arbitrum, and then suddenly they're shouting about the fact, oh, holy shit, I just got this stimmy check from these bearers, what's going on over there? That in itself is a type of a viral kind of word of mouth marketing, is leveraging that point one of the value proposition of there's product market fit in this sector with degenerates who like making money. And so by having a wave of people shouting about the fact they're getting stimmy checks, but maybe based in a different type of sector, like Solana or whatever, is kind of a worthwhile strategy worth exploring and considering. The next on the list is Mabera derivatives. We've got out of the gate, I think we'll have about 10. So that's 10 kind of derivatives, what we call tributaries, that will be launching through the Mabera platform, who a portion of those profits from the mint will be flowing back to Maberas. Tez, feel free to jump in if any of this sounds a point you want to jump in or not. The next point is all the various fat bearer thesis partnerships. I think everyone by this point will have seen the 50% boost with Ambient. So you'll be seeing more blue chip partnerships announced soon. Merch, you will have seen the baddies, right? So not many folks maybe know, but the baddies have been backed by THJ in the background. So we've been helping to manage and produce, create the artwork. We've essentially been helping to incubate the baddies, though we can't take much credit because Keish is an absolute just full-on beast mode of getting the vision realized, along with JDP from Ursidum, who's like just a constant kind of steady anchor source of wisdom and like enthusiasm and energy. Ooga Booga Thursdays, look, I'm going to lay that one at Smokey's door. We got rugged by the foundation on that one, which I also understand in a particular type of a sense, like wanting to give a bit more space. One of the downsides of having a mentally ill janitor, other than the fact they'll go on like 60-minute monologues, not letting anyone else speak, is it's like if you have like a very big tree in a forest, it can swamp out the light, smaller things. Although, you know, if you look at how mycelial networks from big trees connect to smaller trees, that might be a more interesting model to work with. But it is true that one of the negative side effects of an entity like THJ is that it can be overbearing. So Ooga Booga Thursdays. What we do have coming down the pipeline is Arman, FW, and Keisha are going to be doing community calls with Petra in the mix, as well as some kind of other novel snippets coming that FW is going to be pumping out real soon. Standard and Poor's. So Standard and Poor's, like Standard and Poor's, POORS, was the basic idea that as new entrants enter into the ecosystem, it's difficult to identify which are the quality projects. We had the basic idea of that we set up architecture and infrastructure to allow motivated community members to do DD and then submit it through the system, with THJ acting as kind of initial stewards of the system. The reality is most people's DD is complete bullshit. And it's one of those things where, although we got a whole bunch of interest when it was incentivized, the quality of a lot of it was absolute trash. However, in amongst the muck, there were like about 10 people whose DD was actually insightful, well thought out, they spent time on it. So we're in the process of building out V2, led out by Busan, which is working specifically with those kind of dedicated high quality assessors and just pumping out assessments from that kind of dedicated unit as an alternative to the kind of more ecosystem approach. So I think that's V3 by now. So there's been a little bit of a quiet lull there, but that's part of the nature of throwing shit against the wall and seeing what sticks. Bearer Infinity, spoken about. There's more stuff coming down the pipeline. Shout out to Alex, who's kind of spearheaded that whole project in a big way. Shout out to Joker Race as well, because essentially Bearer Infinity, as it currently stands, is kind of a UI layer on top of their stack. And then the last one on that list was Pawn Shop, and that was we were going to create a way for people to be matchmaked for trades, which has been happening in the background. Like when folks want a bear, they'll speak to Jenny and Jenny will then connect them. But the ROI in terms of dedicating dev resources to that versus the other shit that we've got going on, I kind of have put that one on pause. It's fine keeping that stuff behind the scenes and more peer-to-peer via DMs. That is the list of stuff that we posted December 25th, 2023 of stuff you can expect by the end of H2. Yeah, we've basically done it all, and we've got about 5 or 6 other projects which aren't on this list coming down through the pipeline. THJ is an absolute fucking unit in terms of I don't even know how to describe the team other than to say it's just an absolute shock to work with folks who are kind of at the top of their game, working in a kind of common direction together. Like, I could pick out any single one of the contributors and talk about the work that they're doing. And I think they're kind of recognized in their domain as just being really excellent by their peers, by the people they work with, by community, as kind of just being really kind of excellent to work with. Yeah, I can't speak highly. To be honest, the org itself, I think, is my proudest lifetime and professional experience in a particular type of a sense. Yeah, it's easy to be extremely sleep deprived all the time when you feel part of something with other folks who are committed to it as well. That got fucking sappy. Shit. But they're also all mad cunts who are hilarious and fucking stupid all the time in the most hilarious ways. And we fight about some stuff and disagree about stuff, but that's also fine. We've kind of through to a level of maturity where people outright will cast my ideas aside and be like, no, that one's stupid, and they'll go in a particular direction and it's way better than what I was suggesting. But like, it's a bit what I meant by Janny's become sometimes I'm like, fuck, that's more Janny than Janny.
The team's out Jannying Janny now at this point.
The team is now distributed Janny, like they've all earned their Janny badge.
So we do have a new Janny alt season upon us.
Janny alt season. I had to do that because I'm going on this podcast which I want me to talk about, and people like, can you give us an update? So I wanted people to feel like, I do feel a sense of responsibility to the holders, which I think is healthy for founders to have beyond all of the obvious type of a sense. The product of the team is one aspect of it, but the absolute unit that is the Honeycomb holders as a distributed crew of engaged people in the ecosystem. Again, it's not something it's like a crack troop of, I think we must be approaching 4,500, nearly 5,000. Like, it's, to put it into perspective, almost the same number of holders as the Pudgy Penguins. But I'd say that at least from what we've been able to observe on chain, the level of engagement of holders in terms of demonstrating not just that they're diamond pours, so 30% of holders have never sold, or the delta's increased, so they've increased their holdings. It's 30% from mint, which if you consider that Honeycomb have risen to half an ETH, 0.6 ETH, 0.7 ETH at certain points. So we're talking people kind of literally making hundreds of thousands of dollars and still not selling. And not only this, they're not sat on their laurels, they're actually out there themselves lobbying protocols to reach out to our BD team or to airdrops. So there's been a whole bunch of airdrops which have happened, like Fungify, this type of thing, which we didn't know about until it happened. Kind of a reflection just as much, maybe even more so, of the holders themselves. I think there's this symbiotic relationship in a similar way that there is between THJ and the foundation as there is with, and maybe Lord Longname, you have a bit of a, like, you must have felt surprised the first person who got a tattoo of the Yeet face, which didn't exist like months ago. That face came out of a creative process between Lord and an artist. That kind of symbol didn't exist a few months before, and then suddenly someone somewhere has that tattooed on their body. Not just one, as far as I understand, it's more. I don't think we can even call it a top signal because no chain exists. This kind of symbiotic relationship between the holders of a thing and the makers of a thing, and how we feed off each other and kind of bear each other on, is a non-insignificant aspect of the magic that is this ecosystem. I think it's attracted not just quality builders, but also quality, I don't even want to say holders. Bearers is probably the best way of describing this class of to bearer. It's almost like to bearer arms. It's almost like a verb as well as a noun as well as a whatever. The quality in this space is, it's fractal. It kind of in each different domain. Yeah, so shout out to the community. The THC engagers, every project has their people they need to shout out.
and you're hearing this, this is a shout out to you, and you specifically, dear listener. By the way, guys, I'm really sorry, but I really have to drop off at this point.
Later. Sorry you got dropped on your head so much as a kid, but once you figure out what eat means, we'll all be here and ready for you. When your time is ready, we're here.
But by the time I figure out what it means, I'll have ascended to whatever plane of existence exists beyond this one. I think that's where the answers to Yeet will lie.
Peace out, Lord.
Pleasure, Jani, and thanks so much, F-Dub and Tez, for having me on. But yeah.
Lord, you can fuck off.
Okay, just see you, mate.
Okay, that's enough Jani for another year. These things are too fucking long. No more long episodes, okay, guys? Bye!